The 2015 state legislative session began this week, and already it seems like there's a lot to talk about. To fill us in on the latest, we're joined in person this week by State House reporter Brandon Smith. Brandon, thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here, Joe.
Lawmakers started to outline their agendas this week. What are some of those priorities?
Well, House and Senate Democrats have very similar agendas. They say the chief focus of this session should be on helping struggling working-class Hoosiers, and for Democrats that begins with raising the minimum wage. That's pretty much a non-starter with Republicans, and it is unlikely to happen. Now, all four legislative caucuses agree that the state should spend more money funding schools, but how that money is going to get handed out will be where they disagree. One of the most contentious debates we're likely to see in the upcoming session will be on recalculating the state's school funding formula.
And what does Governor Pence have to say about school funding?
Well, education is at the top of the governor's agenda. It's numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on his priority list, and his proposed budget does increase overall education funding. But Democrats are concerned because the governor wants to increase funding for charter schools and the state's school voucher program, and they say that drains money from traditional public schools.
And what about this proposal that would allow the governor to run for both president and governor at the same time?
Well, this bill was filed by Carmel Republican Senator Mike Delph, and it would allow any state lawmaker or the governor to run for both a state and federal office in the same election instead of having them choose between one or the other. And Delph has said that the bill was aimed at Governor Mike Pence.
And how has the governor responded to this?
Well, he was quick to note he had absolutely nothing to do with the bill, and he called it a well-intentioned distraction.
It's not on our agenda, and it's not our focus. You know, I have to tell you, I am completely focused on the future of the people of Indiana, and completely focused on this session of the General Assembly. We'll let decisions about my future await for the spring.
But legislative leaders are pretty skeptical about this bill.
Both Speaker Brian Bosma and Senate President Pro Tem David Long say that they are opposed to this idea entirely, and Long says the bill is unlikely to even get a hearing.
There's another bill proposed that would make the state superintendent an appointed rather than an elected position. What's the latest on that?
Well, this goes back to lawmakers have been discussing for some time about their concerns about the ongoing tension between the State Board of Education and Superintendent Ritz. And a lot of that stems from the fact that Ritz is a Democrat and the State Board is made up of members who are appointed by the governor, who is, of course, a Republican.
Will head lawmakers support this measure?
That remains to be seen a little bit. I will say that top lawmakers will almost certainly oppose any change to the office that takes effect before 2016, which is the next time that Ritz would be up for re-election.
Frankly, in this situation, I think Superintendent Ritz deserves to run again for another term without us trying to change the rules on it. But beyond that, out in 2021, if she decides to run again or not, that's a different situation with a different governor and probably a different legislature. And I think, you know, making that change it will be a good thing for Indiana, because I think the appointed superintendent is the proper and normal way to go about it in most of the states.
There's one more legislative measure that leaders said that they would probably support. It's redistricting. What's the latest on that bill?
Well, the proposed bill would create an independent redistricting commission, which would then be responsible for drawing the lines. What remains to be seen there, though, is how that commission would be appointed, who would do the appointing, and who would ultimately be responsible for actually approving the maps, because there are some state constitutional issues involved there.
Okay, thank you very much, Brandon, for being here today.
Thank you, Joe.